Audio Unleashed.
Let's do it. Let's crank it up.
For Audio Unleashed fans that love it when we rip up really stupid stuff, this is going to be a really hot episode for you. Because there's nothing we like in this episode. I don't think there is. Nothing.
That's a good point. We're going to start with one of the more interesting articles that we've tackled in quite some time. So I saw this on Sean Olive's Facebook page, and you did too, and you beat me to putting it in the idea board. But this is a piece from a website called Zoom Bangla, and the article is titled "Why Tom Waits' Martha is the Ultimate Emotional Litmus Test for Hi-Fi Systems." The reason that Sean was posting about it is because he is quoted in this article as saying something that he never would have said, no matter how many drugs you fed him and paid him to say it. John Darko is also apparently, well, there are words that are attributed to him in this story. There's a lot going on here. The problem is if I start trying to summarize it, it's going to run 30 minutes. So we might as well just wait and just say, this is something truly marvelously horrible.
Horrible in so many ways. Not just from one angle, from actually a couple different competing angles. So.
Yes, absolutely. This is a crap storm of awfulness. So what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about why audiophiles hate these 9 legendary speakers. I have to say, I didn't hate this video. This is from Skylab's Audio, which is like basically a used equipment dealer, as best I could tell. You know, they specialize in vintage audio, and they seem to be pretty legit. Randy Messman recommended them to me. That's the cheap audio man. And anyway, they have a lot of videos, and their videos are pretty good. And I'm familiar with some of these speakers, and audiophiles do, in fact, hate some of these speakers, and in some cases for very good reason. And he's talking about how if they get these speakers in, they sell them almost instantly.
Yeah.
And I think you start to run into the complicated task of defining what an audiophile is.
Right. Yeah. And that's a good point. Yeah.
And then
we're going to switch gears completely. We're going to do a 180, and we're going to talk about an article from Headphonesty. 25 best speakers of all time as voted by thousands of audiophiles worldwide. What's interesting is in this list of top 25 speakers of all time voted on by thousands of audiophiles, there is a speaker that is on Skylab Audio's lists of speakers that audiophiles all supposedly hate. So there's something going on there. I don't know if it means much, but we're going to talk about it. Anyway, I just thought it would be fun to sort of juxtapose this list of speakers that we're supposed to hate with this list of speakers that we're supposed to love, and talk about why and what sort of common traits we can see between them. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, we got to keep patrons happy too. What are we doing for patrons this week?
Well, again, those patrons who enjoy us, trashing articles we think are stupid may get some joy out of this. It's an article that's titled, I think it was originally titled "The 6 Major Issues with Audio Believability," and now it's titled "The 7 Major Problems of Audio Believability." Some of this is actually okay. I mean, but they have all these problems because, that's one thing that these publications always want to talk about is the problems of audio reproduction and how, this is a problem. And this is always, oh my God, it's almost impossible to reproduce music through an audio system in any kind of a, way that just doesn't sound like, monkeys farting into metal trash cans. And so it's this sort of hysteria. And some of it's right. Some of it's actually correct. Okay.
That's a good point.
Some of it's a bunch of baloney, but it's interesting to talk about which of these things are actual concerns and which of these are not. So we will do that.
Yes, absolutely. But before we get there, we got a lot to dig into with this Zoom Bangla article. So again, this is there's no byline on this, shockingly. But the headline is Why Tom Waits' Martha is the Ultimate Emotional Litmus Test for Hi-Fi Systems. And again, we should just say, like, here's what Dr. Olive had to say about it in his Facebook post. I'm 100% sure I never said this, and certainly not in the AES Journal. Another AI journalist, and he posts a link to the story along with his quote. And the quote is, Dr. Sean Olive of Harman International confirms listeners consistently rank speakers higher when they preserve emotional intent, even if frequency responses differ. Which, I mean, if you know Dr. Olive, you'd think that he must have gotten hit on the head by a coconut in Gilligan's Island if he said something like that. But come on, we didn't know he didn't say that. Let's just dive in with the first paragraph, because at some point your ears are going to perk up and you're going to realize something weird is going on here, but it's actually weirder than it seems to be at first. So anyway, let's just dive right in. The article starts. The opening piano notes of Tom Waits' Martha don't just fill a room. They rip through your emotional defenses like a sonic scalpel. When those cracked vocals begin recounting a lifetime of regret to a long-lost lover, even the most stoic listeners find themselves blinking tears away. At What Hi-Fi, we've discovered this haunting ballad isn't just a masterpiece. At this point, I would just, like, if this were live, I would have inserted a special effect of, like, the needle dragging across a record, because it's like, wait a minute, at What Hi-Fi, well, I know what's going on here. And you and I have been through this a lot in many different publications. It happens to us at Wirecutter. It happened to us a lot at Home Theater Review. We will write an article, and some, publication in a country maybe doesn't respect U.S. copyright. We'll just take and republish it. And sometimes they will run it through Google Translate and then run it back through Google Translate. So it's not word for word, but, it's close enough. So I went to look at What Hi-Fi and be like, did they just scrape this article? And I found an article from July 15th, just a couple of weeks ago, by Harry McCarroll on What Hi-Fi. A headline, Why This Iconic Tom Waits Song is a Regular in Our Test Rooms and Can Unveil the True Essence of Hi-Fi. Crazy thing is, this is not just a scraped article. Like, they didn't just take it and repurpose it. Like, they used this article as a skeleton to build their own thing with, like, a combination of AI. Honestly, the way I found the Hi-Fi article originally, What Hi-Fi article, is when I was putting this stuff through large language model detectors, and it was like, yeah, this is obviously AI text, but this doesn't look like AI text. And I would start searching for that text, and it turns out that the text that is not AI written is just plagiarized, right? So the plagiarists are getting smarter or stupider. It's definitely one of those, but I'm not sure which.
I'm pretty sure it's stupid. I mean, because this is really stupid. I mean, this is just one of the stupidest articles I've ever read about audio, and that's saying a lot. I mean, I've read some pretty. I mean, we featured many just obviously absurd articles. Were there any particular statements in here that kind of grabbed you and made you think, what are they talking about? Besides, obviously, the Sean Olive quote.
Yeah, when they go through, there's a subhead, implementing Martha in your own evaluations. And the second one is focus on physical response. They say, place a hand on your stomach. Do you feel the ache during I love you, can't you see? If not, your system's holding back. Wow. That is just 3 different kinds of crazy in one sentence. But what's interesting is that is sort of an adaptation of a line from the What Hi-Fi article. It's not quite that bad crap crazy, but it's not. At the end of the article, Harry says, either way, if you're planning on using this iconic Waits ballad as your own test track, you'll know if your system is doing it justice. You'll be reaching for the tissues in no time.
Just about as bad.
Just about it. It's I don't know. It's definitely on the same road. Let's say that.
I gotta say, I will defend the Zoom Bangla article because, all right, I'm going to place a hand on my stomach. It's on my stomach right now. This is live. All right.
Okay. Yeah. I got you.
Do I feel the ache as I'm talking to you and listening to you through $20 JBL earphones? I do feel the ache. I feel the ache in my stomach right now. Now, I'm pretty sure that it's because of our friendship, the many years of, all the things we've been through together. It's possible it's because I just had Mexican food with my mom an hour ago. But I'm pretty sure it's because of our friendship. I just feel this ache in my stomach.
Nice.
But this is go ahead. You say something because I'm going to rant a little bit. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say we mentioned this John Darko misquote as well. I went looking for this. I went looking through the transcripts of Darko's videos or looking for videos that might have referenced this or whatever. Here's this quote. Industry veteran John Darko notes, tracks like Martha measure how effectively gear translates artistic intent. If you're analyzing frequencies instead of fighting tears, something is wrong. Now, there is a corollary with that statement in the What Hi-Fi article, but I couldn't find where Darko ever said anything of the sort.
No, and John said a couple of things where I was kind of like, oh, come on, John. But that's a little that really does not sound like he's normally a very sensible and no BS kind of guy. Doesn't mean he and I disagree on a few things, but normally that's just like so overwrought and so.
Darko has his own syntax and cadence. He has a distinctive voice and a distinctive way of wording things, right? This does not track with the way Darko talks or writes. So. Yeah, I mean, why are we analyzing this as if Darko might have said it? We already know this is just scraped and made up, but yeah, it's like why they're not even bothering, and you have to wonder, like, what is the point of this? Like, who are they? I tell you what it does, buddy. It really, really gives more weight to a dead internet hypothesis, which is just the notion that we are slowly but surely reaching a point where most of what's on the internet isn't written by humans or intended for humans. It is written by bots, and it is intended to serve ads to other bots that are scraping the website so they could go and say, hey, we got this many impressions. Now you owe us this many ad dollars. It's basically just people scamming the advertising system. But do you think anybody would be fooled by this? Like even boomers, the old boomers who tend to be very fooled by AI stuff. Like, they've been fooled by a lot of stuff with, AOC. They've been fooled by AI stuff related to the floods in Texas. Like boomers are eating up some AI content that most of us would look at and go, come on, you can't possibly believe that's real. But I don't know anybody who would be fooled by this.
Okay,
so, like,
I do.
Really?
I mean,
okay.
I don't necessarily know them, but this is not the stupidest article I've ever read about audio. The stupidest one was by a guy named Peter Kvatrip, who runs Gold Note Audio or something, kind of a boutique company that does like really high-end tube amps that are like, 8 watts or something. And they do some speakers as well. And so he did an article that was in Part-Time Audiophile there. And this guy was basically saying, he had a chart of how, by his assessment, recording quality had peaked in, I don't know, 1930 or 1940 or 1950. And speaker quality had peaked in like 1930 something. These are just ridiculous, absurd, demonstrably false comments. And yet there were a lot of comments after the article. In the comment section, they're like, yeah, right on. You're so right. I'm glad somebody's brave enough to say this stuff. When everything he said, I mean, I'm not going to hold back here. Every single thing he said in the article was just stupid. I mean, just flat out pompous nonsense. And, when this guy says, you'll know if your system is doing it justice. You'll be reaching for the tissues in no time. Well, you know what? I haven't heard this Tom Waits tune. Maybe I would be.
That's from the What Hi-Fi article, by the way, not
Yeah, I know.
not the scraped thing.
That's what I'm reading from, because I want to go, because that's the original source here, and that's the original mistake, which was amplified by the boom glove bong glove thing, whatever it was. And but this is the mistake, because how do we know that this particular tune will strike such an emotional reaction in everybody? Well, we don't. All right. I am frankly not a big Tom Waits fan. I think he has some good songs. I think his performances of his own songs are basically horrible. And you got to listen to Holly Cole, for example, to get a good take on a Tom Waits song. All right. So I'm not going to cry when I listen to this. I think that I would be shocked. However, I can't listen to the Jaco Pastorius album Word of Mouth, okay? Because that album came out. I saw him on that tour. And he was great, but that album, that was, his big contract with Warner Brothers, and they put a lot of money behind it, and the album didn't go anywhere. And frankly, it starts out with like this really avant-garde piece, and Warner's dropped him, and that's what pushed him over the edge into all of his. I mean, he always had the mental problems, but that's what just made him. And he ended up, homeless in New York City and living on the street, and died when a bouncer down in Florida beat him up. And it's an incredibly tragic story. I can't listen to that album, even on a Bluetooth speaker, even on like a crappy Bluetooth speaker. I just cannot listen to it. Whereas some guy who writes for What Hi-Fi might listen to it and go, "Oh, this album sucks. Doesn't do anything for me." So this quote unquote measure of audio performance, like how does it make you feel? That is not a measure. Okay.
No,
it's not a measure at all. It's not a rational assessment. It's not critical thinking. It totally does not merit respect at all.
No. And I think I've said something something in this vein of thinking before, but came to the exact opposite conclusion. There is one song that really always just, for whatever reason, grabs my emotional knob and cranks it to 11. And I know it's trite, I know it's cliche, but it is the Beatles, Here Comes the Sun. I cannot listen to that song without having a physiological manifestation of emotions. So I don't use that song as a test track ever, because you could play that song through 10 cans and some string, and I would think it sounded beautiful, right? Yeah. So I actually think, in terms of evaluating a system's performance, look, the whole point of music is the emotional engagement or the intellectual engagement. It is tickling parts of your brain. Like you can't leave emotions out of it purely. But there's a difference between listening for pleasure and listening for an evaluation. And when I'm listening for an evaluation to try to determine whether or not these are going to be speakers that most people will like, right? I'm trying to leave emotion out of it, right? And go by the tried and true metrics that we all know actually work, because they've been tested and proven to work. And none of those tests did the question of whether or not, Here Comes the Sun makes you cry enter into the equation whatsoever. So, yeah, this is stupid.
I was blind testing 3 bookshelf speakers, all in the range of $250 to $400 a pair. And, I had them all up on the stand. I had my ABX box, which I use as a switcher, pretty much perfectly level matched, within a fraction, tiny fraction, within 0.1, 0.2 decibels probably. And as close as you can match speakers. It's not possible to perfectly level match speakers because of the frequency response differences.
Right.
But I listened to these 3, and I did not listen for does it touch me emotionally? I listened to, Tracy Chapman, Fast Car. I'm like, okay, are all the elements of the tune in balance? Does the voice sound recessed? Because it sounds recessed on a lot of speakers. How open does it sound? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does the bass distort? All those kind of things. And, I played many different tracks. And there was no does this hit me emotionally? And in fact, Tracy Chapman's Fast Car does not hit me emotionally at all. It's a fine song. It is what it is. It's a good production. But, I there was no emotional impact stuff. And, frankly, I can there's a lot of tunes that have emotional impact for me sometimes, and sometimes they don't. And it's not dependent on the system. It's dependent on my mood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I mean, look, if I'm listening to, like Joni Mitchell, Court and Spark, right? Because that's the first thing I put on after my former wife said she wanted to break up with me. And so that has emotional resonance for me, right? I mean, it did before, but it consoled me. But you hear that music at Kroger. I don't break down at Kroger when I listen to it, nor do I break down if I listen to it on, a really high-end good audio system. It's kind of like I'm kind of over that, and I still love that album. But the emotional impact it had on me at one time is I kind of didn't want to listen to it for a while, but now I listen to it. It's fine.
Yeah. We're going to get accused of being, whatever, dirty objectivists here. People are going to claim, "Oh God, you don't get the emotional connection of music that I get." No, it's like, I get it, but it's just too much of a variable, and it's too subjective, and it's too dependent on all of the things that you're talking about to be used as a metric to inform anybody else. Our job as audio writers is to help other people make purchasing decisions that will allow them to connect emotionally to their favorite music, the music that moves them the most or entertains them the most or intellectually stimulates them the most. My emotional connection to the music that I'm listening to when I'm testing a system has absolutely no translatability, I guess is the word I'm looking for, into whether or not the same is going to happen for you. So to use it as a metric is absolutely stupid.
To me, it's failing to understand your own humanity. It's thinking that your emotional reactions are going to necessarily be shared by someone else.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, I think it's about time for us to take a break, cool off, and get some water. But before we do, I wanted to ask you real quick, because I know we're going to get comments on this. You sound a little funny this week. Where are you recording somewhere strange this time around?
There's no stranger place. I'm in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
Here I am on my webcam mic in the deadest room in my brother's house, which is kind of okay, but it's going to sound a little different. So sorry about that.
That's okay. You're still you. We know what you're saying. It's just funny. It's every time one of us is in a different location, we get comments. So it's like, "Oh, you sound different," or whatever. Anyway,
so I'd say, look, I apologize to any of our listeners if my voice doesn't have the same emotional impact it normally does.
No, I think the emotional impact is coming through just fine, buddy.
Okay.
It's just bringing a little bit of room with it. So, all right, Let's go get some water, take a break, be right back, and we're going to talk about speakers that people hate.
Hello, we are back, and this is Audio
Unleashed.
And we are going to talk about a video that I didn't hate this video, but it's about why do audiophiles hate these 9 legendary speakers, and it's by vintage audio dealer Skylabs Audio, and they have a lot of really well-produced videos on YouTube.
Yeah. They're not just a vintage audio dealer, by the way. They do some new stuff. They're like a Luxman dealer, and I think they sell some new turntables and things like that. But I think vintage audio is their bread and butter.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about these speakers though, because since I kind of go off and on with vintage audio, but one of my closest friends is Gordon Soak is a vintage audio dealer, and So I know a lot about these speakers. I've heard a lot of these speakers. Some of them I remember from my childhood, because all this stuff is from the like the 70s, more or less, right? Some of it's still available.
70s and 80s. Yeah.
70s and 80s. The Bose 901 goes back to the 60s, if I remember correctly, like late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into like why audiophiles supposedly hate these speakers. And I will say, vintage audio enthusiasts, are they audiophiles? Are they not? I'm not really sure. I guess it depends on what your definition of audiophile is. And audiophile, I think if you look in Webster's, it says something like someone who's interested in high fidelity audio reproduction, which to me makes sense, except a lot of audiophile products that you buy now are certainly not high fidelity, even though they claim to be.
Right.
As my good friend Vance Dickinson, editor of Voice Coil Magazine, author of the Loudspeaker Design Cookbook, who I just visited 2 days ago, as he put it, a lot of these high-end companies that you see at these shows are really furniture manufacturers who think they know something about sound.
Right.
Okay.
I just realized there's a lot of common ground between the audiophile community and the pro wrestling community. There's this concept in pro wrestling, as I understand it, called kayfabe, which to be a pro wrestling fan, you have to pretend to believe that the staged performances are authentic. It's not that you have to believe it, you have to pretend to believe it. So in a lot of ways, I don't know if these audiophiles really believe this stuff is hi-fi, or if they pretend to believe it's hi-fi to prove their cred as a member of the audiophile community. Is it all kayfabe, or am I just reading too deep into it?
Well, there's your next column idea for Soundstage.
There you go.
I'm serious. Why not? It'd be a good column that would infuriate a lot of people. So anyway, you want to just run down these speakers and talk about them a little bit? As much as we can. Some of them we probably can't. But
do you want me to read the list?
Yeah.
Okay. So the speakers covered in this video include the Infinity SM series studio monitors, the realistic Mach 1 speaker from 1977, the Polk SDA series stereo dimensional array, which had the cable that went between them and the crosstalk cancellation.
Yeah.
There's a term here that I was not familiar with before watching this video, and it encompasses a family of different speakers from different manufacturers, but he lumps them all under the heading of kabuki speakers. And the way he describes those is brands like Sansui, Kenwood, and Pioneer packed multiple drivers into one cabinet for an impressive look. And, it's just like, 10 drivers in one cabinet. These speakers when you see them. I've just never sort of heard them put under one umbrella. Next up, Pioneer HPM 100. Then the Klipsch Heritage series, which goes as far back as the 1950s. The JBL L100, which I think we'd have to agree is one of the most iconic speakers of all time, and just in terms of like brand awareness. You look at that speaker, everybody's seen that speaker, even if they don't do speakers. Then Sherwin Vega speakers, and he doesn't get specific with a model here. He's just Sherwin Vega. And then he ends the list with the Bose 901. Yeah, it's just quite a bit. Are there any here that you hate? Because I have to admit, I don't hate any of these speakers. I don't know that I would own any of them. I don't know that I would enjoy listening to any of them, but hate is just why am I going to expend emotional energy on something that doesn't, why would I hate any of these? I just don't want them. You know what I mean?
Well, because it gives me joy to hate.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to experience some joy here. So the Infinity SM series, I tested some of these when I was at Video Magazine in the early 90s. It's not a reflection on all Infinities, just this. These were horrible speakers. I just hated them. We blind tested them, and everybody just hated them. The frequency response was all over the map. They had these horrible dome mid-range drivers, which I've heard them work, but not often. They're generally pretty bad because they have an oil cam response problem where the dome goes forward and the tip of the dome goes in like an oil can, and just not good. And the realistic Mach 1, I remember from when I was a kid, because when you were a kid in the 70s, the best audio gear you probably ever saw was at Radio Shack. And I heard this thing and I kind of assumed it would be good. But once I learned how speakers work, I looked at it, was like, yeah, there's just no way that could have worked.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little like the Kabuki speakers we're going to talk about. I'm sure it had a really minimal crossover. And because, it had to be, it didn't matter. You can cheap out on the crossover, and it had a big woofer. So it probably had decent bass for the time. And
15-inch. That's ginormous.
Yeah. And so, but but it was a 15-inch woofer. It was a big multicellular horn for the mid-range, and then a little teeny tiny tweeter horn that was pointed in the wrong direction toward the dispersion would be more vertical than horizontal. Just a mess. The Polk SDA series, actually, I got to say, I've heard some of the Polk SDA things, and I thought it worked. I thought it worked great. I heard them in Matt Polk's house one time, and the system sounded terrific, because that's just crosstalk canceling, and it works. It's been implemented in innumerable audio products. It's still being implemented today in all of the virtualizers that convert stereo to surround sound. They all use crosstalk cancellation.
I think the point that he brings up with these, though, is like specifically the Polk SDA series. Like, you had to sit right, like it worked for one person pretty much, and you had to be sitting right in the middle and not move, not do anything, but just sit and stare straight ahead and listen. So
why is that a problem?
Well, some people might want to listen with a friend, or I do.
Why?
I don't know. I spent a good chunk of this past Saturday just hanging out with my buddy Dave, like throwing music at each other. I mean, we constantly sort of surprising each other with music, and I don't know, I like for it to be a communal thing sometimes. I like to sit around the hi-fi and share with people. I sometimes sit down in front of my system with my wife and listen to music that I want her to hear. Sometimes I listen alone, and sometimes I really get more of it listening with a friend or a loved one.
Just to test our previous hypothesis, did you and he cry at the same times?
No, we did not.
Okay. All right. So Kabuki speakers, those are all garbage, because, look, here's what works. Woofer, mid-range, tweeter. That's what works.
Yeah.
There are cases where you can do multiple mid-ranges and multiple tweeters and multiple woofers, but they need to all kind of be in a vertical line. We're going to talk about the JBL L100, that's tweeter next to mid-range. But if you have the crossover done right, it can work. It's just as center speakers in surround sound systems can work if they're done right. But those are just generally horrible. I think you could probably still buy speakers like that. Maybe in I know in Chinatown in New York, they used to sell a lot of that stuff, but just a ton of drivers all over the place.
Kind of a precursor to Tecton in a lot of ways.
Well, I will grant that I can see acoustically where he's going with it. It may not be the way I'd go, but it's not nutty, and it's not done without knowledge, and it's not just someone screwing a bunch of drivers in and wiring them up. Okay, so let's give him credit. Pioneer HPM 100, of course, is the speaker that was in the Replacements video, Bastards of Young.
It was also in my bedroom for quite a few years.
Wow, I didn't know that. Did you kick it in?
No, but that was from a system that, like, my aunt, I think it was her fifth or sixth husband, when he moved in with her, she was like, oh, all of this stereo crap has got to go. And he was like, can I just, like, you want to hang on to it? And they only stayed married for like 6 months. So then he came and took it back. But I had those in my house for a while, and man, I rocked out to them quite a bit. Listened to a good deal of Appetite for Destruction on those speakers.
Wow. But in the Replacements video, they famously kicked in the woofers at the end of the song. Right. And I know I've heard them, and I wasn't impressed. JBL L100, the newer version, actually sounds good.
Yeah.
It's engineered with an understanding of science, which the old one kind of wasn't.
Yeah. You skipped the Klipsch Heritage speakers, though, by the way, buddy.
Oh, well, some people really like them. I'm, a few of them sound good, but like the big Klipsch horns, I just heard a set at one of these audio, what are they called? The
Kisa?
Yeah. Jazz Kisa. And I wasn't impressed. They were so proud of their speakers. I didn't say anything. I don't want to say anything now, but whatever. If people like it, it's some of the smaller ones I think sound pretty good. I've heard,
Yeah.
Sherwin Vega, do you have any experience with that?
In my first apartment, our entire home theater system was built on Sherwin Vega speakers.
Wow.
And it was, I think they belonged to my roommate at the time. And like, as soon as he moved out, I replaced them with Infinities. But yeah, I've watched many a movie on Sherwin Vega speakers. They did have actually a pretty interesting center channel back in the mid 90s, but I remember them being very, very bassy, and we lived in an apartment, so we couldn't listen to them very loud, or we got a lot of knocking on the walls. So but it's, you don't hear about them much. Are they still kicking around? Do they still make consumer?
I'm sure somebody bought the name. I actually remember. I met Connie Serwinski, who was the daughter of whatever Serwinski that founded it. And because they still had a lot of precedence back then. And I did not experience this, but I heard tell from my good friend Lance Braithwaite, my former mentor at Video Magazine, that at one time Sherwin Vega demonstrated one of their woofers power handling by plugging it directly into a wall outlet.
Wow.
Which gives you
60 cycle hum? Yeah.
60 cycles at, with 1800 watts.
Yeah. Wow. That is insane.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm on the Sherwin Vega website now. They do sell quote unquote hi-fi speakers and subs. They've got several different series, but they've got the surrounds are so the speakers are all black. The drivers are all black, except the surrounds are red and the tweeters are red. So they've got a very Tron-like aesthetic going on here. Interesting. Yeah.
But it's more, it's for an era. It's back when having a set of big badass speakers was like the thing. I mean, the 70s, that was what it was all about. And I don't remember ever hearing one. I tested a couple. We tested a set for Home Theater Magazine way back in the day, I think. And I think I did one for Video Magazine. And I don't remember ever being impressed. Sound came out. Was the worst speaker I ever heard. But so what about Bose 901?
It was interesting. His discussion of the Bose 901 was when I started to get a little frustrated with the video, and it had nothing to do with the Bose 901 itself. It's just there's a vibe throughout this whole video, and I think it's because, look, this guy's a retailer. He's not wanting to tell you that any of the products he sells are crap. So there's a vibe throughout this whole video where it's like, all opinions are valid, man. Whatever you like, it's my-fi. It's just like, if you like a speaker, it's a great speaker. If you don't like a speaker, don't buy it. And there was a lot of that with the Bose 901. But when he gets to talking about, like, some people listen to them with the 8 drivers firing into the wall. Some people turn around and listen with the 8 drivers firing forward. Some people insist that you can't use the EQ. Some people can't listen without the EQ. And it's just like, in the end, he's not really saying anything other than basically what he said about all of the other speakers. Some people love them. Some people hate them. If you love them, you're right. If you hate them, you're wrong, I think. Or maybe just don't, I don't know. But it became very sort of advertorial to me at that point,
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the speaker's based on really flawed, not in quotes, science in quotes, done by, Dr. Amar Bose, who founded Bose and who was a teacher at MIT, who measured, went and measured in concert halls and found that on average, I guess it's 80-something% of the sound was reflected and 12% was direct. And that's why he came up with this formula. And I will say that friend of the pod, Michael Fremer, told me once, years and years ago, that he was a radio host in Boston, and he had some kind of a show, but he talked about audio as well. And he basically was saying how, no, this theory is flawed, that you need to somehow reproduce this ratio in the home, which of course the home has completely different acoustics than a hall. And also that ambience is already in the stereo recording. Okay.
Right.
So you don't need to double up on that ambience formula. And I think Bose threatened to sue him, because Bose threatened to sue a lot of people and did sue a lot of people. Back in the day, they're a different company now. But this is how the things that people claim are science are quite often not really science.
I think what you're trying to say is bad methodology gives you bad results.
Right. That's a good thing to say.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard 901s. I played through, there's a PA speaker version of this where all the speakers face forward, right? And it was back in the late 70s, early 80s, when there really weren't a lot of good PA speakers. Most of them were horrible. Those were among the better sounding PA speakers you could get. Partly because they were EQ'd and they sounded good. They played pretty loud. And that's like when I was in college, the bands that were like really serious and good and maybe had rich parents used those speakers. And that's the ones I always wanted. And also they were really portable. And I will also say that my sometime girlfriend, Miriam, has Bose 601s. And the first time I went to her apartment, she's like, "Don't criticize my speakers." And I'm like, "I wouldn't do that to you." I'm like, I know this isn't a thing for you. And it's not like you're reading audio magazines or my stuff to find out what to buy. And she didn't even remember where she got it, but she had Bose 601s. And then she left me for the day because she had to go to work. And I hung out and worked all day. And I listened to her 601s. And I thought, these are actually fine. Not my favorite speaker, but it did not sound unflat. It's like a wooden tower speaker, I think, with a woofer in the bottom and like a couple of mid-range tweeters pointing in different directions. I can't remember, but it was okay. And so, the 901s, I mean, for their time, there weren't a lot of good speakers back then. So,
yeah. Well, anyway, we've talked a lot about speakers that people are not supposed to like. Yeah. Let's take a break, get some water, come back and talk about the 25 speakers that we're apparently supposed to find beloved. Yeah. How about that?
As voted by audiophiles
worldwide.
Apparently, all of whom were over age 70.
Good point. All right, man. Well, everybody, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Audio
Unleashed.
Well, you clipped on that one a little bit. Good job, buddy.
Wow.
So this time around, we are talking about another list of speakers. This time, as we said, ones that we're all supposed to love because it's been voted on by thousands of audiophiles worldwide. So this is an article from Headphonesty by Andy G., senior audio writer for Headphonesty. 25 best speakers of all time as voted by thousands of audiophiles worldwide. I don't know where they voted, though. Do you know? Oh, there's a little box here. You can check out the Facebook poll and add your responses here. Did they really get thousands of replies? Brent, they actually got thousands of replies. They got 2,600 comments on this thing, on this Facebook posts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even more than we get.
That's quite a bit more than we get. Yeah. So, but anyway, they, I guess, scraped those 2,600 replies and came up with a list of speakers that are apparently the best, according to audiophiles, which, again, it goes back to the problem of, what you were mentioning before, like what is an audiophile? Like what are the credentials of these people saying these are the best speakers ever? And are they all judging these speakers by the same metrics? Or, is it feels? Is it, technical specifications? Is it, legendary status? Like, so you want to start digging through the list and opining about it?
Okay, Klipschorn is the top of the list. That's the original Klipschorn, which they still make today. A lot of people love that speaker. I don't, but a lot of people do, and that's fine. And whatever. I don't have a problem with that. And also, audiophiles could say, yes, we love that, because it's not hard to hear one of these. It's a high-end speaker, but, like I said, I think it's used in a lot of these jazz kissa places. Klipsch still demos them at audio shows a lot. So you can hear, and dealers, I guess, probably sell them somewhere, and sure, you can go hear these. And vintage dealers, I'd say almost every vintage audio dealer probably has these in stock on occasion, because people sell them because they're huge.
Well, Classic Audio and Records up in Prattville, they do a monthly listening party where people just bring in their favorite records and play them for, they'll have a really good crowd of people, 35, 40 people packed into this little vintage audio shop. They use Klipschorns.
Wow.
So it's kind of neat. Fills the space in an interesting way. It's a good speaker for a big old retail shop. I'll tell you that much.
They're colored sounding, and to me, they don't have a lot of impact, but whatever. People like them.
Yeah.
But that's legit. Okay, that's a speaker that audiophiles could conceivably say, oh yeah, that's the best of all time. I can see that people said that. The next entry, I am not so sure, because this product has not existed for decades.
Yeah. The Infinity IRS 5. Boy, wow. 1,500 pounds worth of speaker with 12 servo-controlled woofers, 72 emit ribbon tweeters, and 24 IM planar mid-range drivers. I've never heard these. I don't know where I would have heard them.
Well, yeah, I mean they were. So I remember when these were originally advertised, the ad said 19,000 per side, which was like kind of good marketing, I guess. It sounds kind of like, hey man, you can, cool people can afford to spend 19,000 per channel for their speakers.
Yeah.
I do not ever remember hearing these. It's one of the speakers is a big giant, almost like a wall, almost like 3 foot by about 7 feet, that has a whole bunch of mid-range and ribbon tweeters. And then there's a separate subwoofer for each one that has 6, I think 12-inch woofers. Arnie Udell, who was one of the co-founders of Infinity, who designed these things, he marketed a newer version of it under the Genesis name later on, after they sold Infinity to Harman. I did hear that, and I remember thinking it was pretty good. I didn't stay in the room long because he was very crabby. He was kind of fighting with somebody about what music to play on them and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool, and there's nothing wrong with it, if you want to spend that kind of money. And it's a line array, so it's going to sound, when you stand up, it'll sound the same as it does sitting down. But how many people remember that? I mean, the Infinity hasn't sold them since '85, I think, and then Arnie Udell sold them, I think, up until about probably the late 1990s. So that's been almost 30 years ago. So,
well, let's pull up one of the comments from this thread, the poll, just to give you an indication of like the vibe we're getting. This is just a comment that stands out. I found at random. One person said, "Never heard, but I figured Genesis speakers are pretty much up there. I should also like to give some quad ESLs a whirl." I mean, that's the kind of comments that we're getting in this. So that's what they had to build their article on, which is just a lot of vibes.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So B&W Nautilus, well, that's plausible, because these launched in late 1990s, I think.
93.
And they were revered. The guy who designed them, Lawrence Dickey, is still a very active designer who does Vivid Audio, and he's employing the same concepts developed for these speakers are employed in the Vivid Audio speakers, and they work great. I mean,
yeah.
So I would say probably the Vivid speakers are far better than the Nautilus because he's had 30 years to improve it.
I'm figuring out something, buddy, about this poll. I'm scrolling through these 2,600 comments going, how did they distill this list? And what I'm realizing is basically they just looked at the comments that had the most likes. So, there's a comment here, the entire ADS line, but specifically the LS or the L6, no, the L710 and the L810. And there's a lot of people liked that. So it ended up on the list. But the comments that, not a lot of thumbs up, didn't make it into the final list. So I've been trying to figure out what's their methodology? How do you take 2,600 comments and turn it into 25 speakers? But that's how.
Oh.
Yeah,
is there anything, rather than go down the entire list, you want to just pick some? I mean, the Pioneer HPM 100 is in here since audiophiles apparently both hate and like that speaker.
And the JBL L100, hate it
also
and love
in there.
Yeah,
hate it and love it. The Klipsch La Scala, which is a smaller version of the Klipsch horn. Altic Voice of the Theater. These things still go for a fortune. And because I know because Gordon Soak, gets them and sells them. And I've not heard one that sounded good. I've heard a few. I remember being at Gordon's because Gordon would get them because he'd find them in theaters, right? In old theaters they were shutting down. And he would get them and refurbish them, and they could rebuild. You could rebuild all of it. You could rebuild the drivers and everything. You could rebuild the crossover, and they refinished the cabinets, and they looked great. They look, the ones that Gordon sold look at least as good as these ones that are pictured here that are new. And I remember I was listening to him with Bob Carver.
Ooh,
and he was just fascinated by them. I don't think he'd ever actually heard a pair in a normal room, only in a big theater. And these have a 12-inch woofer in a horn cabinet, or is it a 15? I don't know. And then a big multicellular horn on top. And he was walking closer to them and further away. He said, basically, when you walk closer and further away, it's like a mid-range knob.
Wow. Wow.
And he was right. It was really funny. I was kind of oh, that's funny, just because of the weirdness, the tightness of the dispersion and everything on them. And it really, it changed the balance of the speaker a lot. And it was kind of fun. But, a lot of vintage hi-fi people love these things because, in fact, they are, oh no, I'm sorry. I was going to say that they're on my LinkedIn page, but those are JBLs, the similar JBL speaker. Which Gordon happened to have in his shop, and I shot a dramatic photo of. But, they're kind of fun. Quad ESLs, those are still great speakers. They're not sold, but, Quad has newer versions that are sold.
Yeah.
And
wow, the Yamaha NS1000 is on the list. This is one of those cases where I'd love to have Dr. Olive on the podcast with us to discuss, because I'm sure he'd have thoughts. But that's a speaker that has largely, appeared in studio. I mean, good. A lot of the music that we love have been mixed on those speakers, right? I think that's fair to say.
The NS10 was the monitor that was super popular in
that's right.
recording studios. I mixed my first album on it, which I recorded way back in the 80s. And those had a woofer and a tweeter, and they were typically used on their side. These are also, the same thing. They're NS1000s. They have a dome mid-range and a tweeter and level controls for the mid-range and the tweeter, but they look similar. They have the kind of black ash, matte finish, and I guess they're from the same era. They probably sound, NS10s were not revered for how good they sounded. Okay, NS10s were not revered for how good they sounded. They were kind of loved for how bad they sounded, and because they were pretty bright. And a lot of times people would tape a piece of felt or something over the tweeter, or a piece of tissue paper or something just to damp the tweeter down. but a lot of records were mixed on those. Some of them, occasionally, some people still use them. And I'm a little surprised that Audiophiles said this is one of the best speakers ever, because it's not, maybe because it's one of the first to use beryllium, but I'm surprised it's so many of these.
I think in this case, we would define audiophiles as people who replied to this thread on Head Honesty's Facebook page. I don't think they interviewed all of them to decide, are you an audiophile or not? It's just, they're like, well, of course our audience is audiophiles. Why else would you read Head Honesty? I don't know.
I'm trying to find some other Vandersteen 2CE, which is a speaker that I have heard several times. And is revered among audiophiles. It's a first order speaker, and it's, I really think first order, phase coherent speakers, where the drivers are kind of tilted back, and these look like definitive technology speakers, but if you take the grill cloth off, you can see that the drivers are in separate enclosures and they're all time aligned, right?
Yeah.
I think for certain material, if you're going to listen to classical music on them, for maybe some jazz things and stuff, they're pretty good. They beam, first of all, they beam vertically, and that's bad because the drivers, interfere with each other. And then second of all, the power handling on the higher frequency drivers isn't that good because it's only a first order roll off, so it's not protected from the bass. I remember I heard these at a dealer here in Houston, actually, years ago. It's like 25 years ago. And I was going there. I was there with another manufacturer, a speaker manufacturer, and the dealer's like, "Oh, you got to hear my Vandersteen." And we're kind of like, "Okay." And we go in there, and he's so proud of these speakers and everything, and these really exotic amplifiers he has, and these exotic cables and stuff driving him. So me and the other speaker manufacturer, we're real nice and everything. And we get in the car, and he's just like, "Did those suck as bad as I thought?" I'm like, yes, they sucked as bad as you thought, because they were just distorting like crazy. And that's something that if you get the Vandersteens that have like 4 or 5 drivers, then they can get it to where it doesn't distort. But like the ones that are 2 and 3 ways, I've never heard one that didn't distort really badly.
Yeah. There's another speaker on the list that sort of gives weight to my hypothesis. Number 20, the Realistic Minimus 7. Which sold for $40 to $60 per pair. And I'm looking through the list on Head Honesty, and I think the person who posted it as a joke. And then most of the replies are actually this sort of laugh out loud emoji. I think that's what they did. Well, that got a lot of reaction, so put it on the list. But I don't think this person was serious. I mean, look, bang for the buck. I'd say, yeah, but like best speakers of all time, you're going to put the Realistic Minimus 7 on there? Really?
Okay, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this. And for a lot of the same reasons. In the last episode, we talked about the LS35A speaker, right? And why
which is also
a
on
lot
this
of people.
List. Yeah.
Right. So, but this is kind of like an LS35A. It's a really compact speaker. It's got a really stiff cabinet. It's got, small drivers right next to each other, and it's got a non-sucky crossover, right? So these actually, I owned a pair of these. I own the smaller Minus 3.5, which is the single 3.5-inch woofer, I think, and full range driver. Those were also really good, for what they were. And I love these, and just because the bass was tight, they sounded really clean, and they were good. They sounded natural. They had some spaciousness to them. And just so many of the speakers back then were just these horrible resonant pieces of junk that just boomed like crazy because the cabinets were flexing, and the drivers were spaced out too far and had a low level crossover, and so the drivers interfere with each other, and yuck.
Yeah,
just yuck.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not denying that they're good speakers. What strikes me as odd is that they are on a list of the 25 speakers that audiophiles think are the best in the world. Like, that's what strikes me as a little odd.
It's a little odd, but, well, Oh, I got to say, the Wilson Watt puppy's on here, and that could absolutely legitimately be on a list because a lot of people love that, even though different versions of the Watt puppy sounded very different. But
yeah.
Let's see, what would I want to own? Actually, if I could own anything of a Watt puppy version 3, I'd probably take. Yeah, that's the one. Like Guttenberg sold Watt puppies at Sound by Singer, and he said the 3 was the best. I've heard the 3, and it was like, oh boy, could those things throw a soundstage. So credits wise, who's editing this thing? Is it me this time?
Yeah, because I'm going to be in New York this week. So
that's right. So I don't know what I'm going to do for music.
Dip back into the archives.
Maybe I'll do a version of Tom Waits's Martha in the style of the Butterburger house band.
Oh boy. Okay. I can't wait to hear that.
And if you don't cry, that means your speakers suck. But you know what? Let us know, people. It'll be the first cut.
Okay.
I think I'll have time to do this. And let us know what your emotional reaction is to the first cut, and what was your monitoring system? Was it the Wilson Watt puppy, the 3rd version, or was it Beats Solo 3 headphones or something in between?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of you. As always, hey, go leave us a review, and wherever you listen to this podcast, go leave us a review. It helps. We need some new people coming in. We've our growth has stagnated, and although I'm sort of an anti-growth person as a rule, I don't count this one, man. We need some more listeners. So go leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen, and. Otherwise, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. But patrons, stick around. We got one more for you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. If you liked what you heard and wish there'd been a little bit more of it, we got some good news for you.
Indeed, we do. If you check out patreon.com/audiounleashed, all one word, you can get new episodes a little earlier than everybody else.
And sometimes it's like a day or two early. Sometimes it's nearly a week. We never really know until we start editing.
But the big plus is that you get extended cuts of every episode. And usually that's going to mean a whole extra segment that's about maybe a geekier topic or something that's a little more personal to us, or something that's just going to really appeal to the hardcore Audio Unleashed listener.
Yeah, what it boils down to is if you're somebody who would support Audio Unleashed on Patreon, we're going to make sure the bonuses to every episode are really aimed straight at your interests.
Yeah, and so if you want to hear these segments, you can subscribe to our Patreon for $3 a month, which is less than I spend every single day on my cup of coffee when I go to Starbucks to write my boring articles.
Yeah. One more time with that URL, that's patreon.com/Audio Unleashed.
Or Audio
Unleashed. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.